After 32 years of 5 a.m. alarms and missed holidays, I finally received my $4.1 million retirement package. I grabbed my briefcase, my award plaque, and drove home 2 hours early to surprise my wife. But the moment I stepped inside our quiet house, I heard her voice upstairs laughing into her phone. "Once the paperwork is done," she said, "we'll get everything. He'll never see it coming." I froze at the bottom of the staircase, the same one where we'd taken family photos for decades, when she mentioned a name I never expected to hear on that call. In that moment, I realized my retirement wasn't the end of my career. It was the beginning of a fight for my life. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Before we continue, take a moment to leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I really enjoy reading them all. And just a quick note before the story begins. Some details have been slightly fictionalized for storytelling and educational purposes. Any similarities to real people or places are coincidental, but the message behind this story is meaningful and worth hearing. But let me back up. That morning started like a dream. Mr. Warren called me into his office at 9:30. For 3 decades, he'd been more than a boss. He'd been a mentor, the guy who saw potential in a 27-year-old kid fresh out of state college. Now at 65, he looked at me across that oak desk with genuine emotion in his eyes. "Stellan," he said, sliding the folder across to me. 32 years. You've earned every cent of this. $4.1 million. The number felt surreal. 800,000 up front, the rest structured as an annuity over the next 15 years. My hands actually trembled as I held the documents. Warren stood, extended his hand, and pulled me into an unexpected hug. "Go enjoy life, Coleman. You've earned it." The office threw an impromptu celebration cake in the break room. Handshakes, a few tears from folks I'd worked alongside for decades. Mike Johnson, our IT guy, clapped me on the shoulder. "Brother, you're living the dream. What's first, Hawaii new truck?" I just laughed. Haven't gotten that far yet. By 2 I was done with goodbyes. The briefcase felt heavier than usual, not from the plaque inside, but from the weight of possibility. 32 years of 500 a.m. alarms, of missed soccer games and weekend overtime, all validated in a single morning. I thought about Janet, about how we dreamed of this moment since we were young. Travel, grandkids, someday. A cabin by the lake, maybe. The future stretched out before me like an open road. I decided to surprise her. Usually I didn't get home until 4:30. Today, I'd be there by 2:15. The drive felt different. Trees along the highway seemed greener. The sky looked wider. I caught myself grinning at nothing, fingers drumming the steering wheel to some old Springsteen song on the radio. 26 years of marriage. We'd built a good life. A solid life. Sure, things had been a little distant lately. Janet seemed preoccupied, spending more time on her phone, but that was normal, right? Everyone goes through phases. I pulled into our driveway at 2:18. The house looked peaceful in the September afternoon light. 4 bedrooms, 2 stories worth about $850,000 in today's market. We'd raised Taylor here. Every inch held memories. I grabbed my briefcase and the retirement plaque, eased the car door shut quietly. She'd be so surprised. The front door was unlocked. I stepped into the foyer, and that's when I heard it. Her voice upstairs on speakerphone. "Don't worry, Brian. Once the divorce is finalized, we'll have at least half of that $4 million. Maybe more if his lawyer's as incompetent as I hope." I froze at the base of the oak staircase. The same staircase where we'd hung Taylor's school photos, where we'd taken Christmas card pictures for 2 decades, where Janet and I had sat on the steps 26 years ago, newlyweds planning our future. A man's voice, smooth, confident, came through the speaker. And Taylor's on board completely. Janet's tone was almost cheerful. She understands that this money could set her up for life. Set us up for life. Chad needs help with his business, and she wants that wedding we talked about. Big venue destination. Honeymoon the works. You're sure he doesn't suspect anything? My wife, the woman I'd built a life with, laughed. Actually laughed. "Stellan, please. He's so wrapped up in his work, he barely notices I exist anymore. By the time he realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. We file first freeze the accounts, and his precious retirement fund gets split down the middle." The briefcase slipped from my hand. It didn't fall. I caught it, but the near miss sent a jolt through my system. My heart hammered against my ribs. The hardwood floor beneath my feet suddenly felt like ice. 26 years. I could have walked up those stairs, could have confronted her right then, shouted, demanded answers, let all the hurt and rage and betrayal pour out. Instead, I backed toward the door slowly, carefully, making no sound. Janet never knew I was there. By 4, and I was sitting in a diner 8 m from home. The coffee in front of me had gone cold. I hadn't touched it. My hands rested flat on the table, palms down, trying to stop the shaking. Brian, Taylor, divorce, $4 million. The words circled in my head like vultures. A waitress stopped by. "You okay, Han? Need a refill?" "I'm fine." The lie came automatically. "Just thinking." She moved on. I stared out the window at the parking lot, watching cars come and go, each one carrying people with normal problems, normal days. And then something clicked. Janet didn't know. She had no idea I'd heard her. No idea I'd been standing in our foyer while she plotted my financial destruction with her lover Brian and enlisted our daughter against me. That meant I had an advantage, maybe the only one I'd get. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to Mike Johnson's number. He answered on the second ring. "Stellan, man, you celebrate yet?" "And Mike, I need a favor, quiet favor." I kept my voice steady. "Can you check the system logs, see who accessed my retirement file? Specifically, who might have forwarded information outside the company?" A pause. "That's highly irregular. What's going on? Just need to know. Can you do it?" "Yeah, give me until tomorrow morning. Thanks, brother." I hung up, sat there another 20 minutes, let the shock drain away, replaced by something colder, something focused. By 6, I was home again. Parked in the driveway like it was any other evening, walked through the front door with my briefcase and plaque. "Honey, I'm home." Janet appeared from the kitchen, smile bright. "You're late. How was your day?" I kissed her. Cheek. The same cheek I'd kissed 1,000 times. "Long day, but good. Warren said some nice things." "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Her eyes never wavered. "Perfect performance. Taylor's coming by for dinner. I made your favorite pot roast." Dinner was surreal. Taylor arrived at 6:30, gave me a hug, congratulated me on retirement. Her smile looked genuine. Her questions about my plans sounded interested, but now I heard the subtext, saw the calculation behind her eyes. I played my part flawlessly. Asked about Chad, about wedding plans, laughed at Janet's stories, complimented the pot roast, an Oscar-worthy performance. That night, I lay in bed beside Janet. The room was dark except for the glow of her phone. She was texting someone, probably Brian. Her back was turned to me. 26 years ago, we'd fallen asleep, facing each other, fingers intertwined. Now we were strangers sharing a mattress. The betrayal sat in my chest like a stone, my daughter, my wife, both of them ready to carve up my life's work like a Thanksgiving turkey. But I said nothing, did nothing, because I'd already made my decision. I lay there in the darkness beside my wife, the woman planning to take everything I'd worked for, and didn't say a word because I'd made my choice. I wouldn't confront her. I wouldn't give her a chance to prepare. I'd be smarter, quieter, and when the moment came, I'd strike in a way she'd never see coming. The next morning, Mike Johnson called me back with news that turned suspicion into certainty. I was in the garage, Janet, still asleep upstairs, when my phone buzzed at 8:00. I hadn't slept much. My mind kept replaying the conversation I'd overheard, trying to understand how 26 years of marriage could unravel in a single afternoon. "Stellan," Mike said. His voice was tight. "You're not going to like this." I stepped outside and closed the garage door. The September air was crisp. Birds were singing. Neighbors were leaving for work. Normal people, living normal lives. "Tell me Donna Phillips in HR forwarded your retirement file 3 days ago to an external email. Brian Caldwell at caldwellfineinitial.com. That's a federal privacy violation. Company policy strictly forbids sharing employee financial data outside the organization. 3 days ago, before I'd even received the official package. Brian had known before I did. Can you document it?" "Already did. Screenshots are in your inbox." "But Stellan, this is serious. Donna could face criminal charges. The company could be liable. Are you sure you want to?" "I'm sure. Thank you, Mike." When I hung up, I stood in the driveway, staring at nothing. The pieces finally aligned. Brian wasn't just Janet's lover. He was a planner, a strategist, someone who'd cultivated an insider to access my private information before I even knew what I had. By 10 Gao, I was sitting across from Angela Foster in her law office 30 manors outside our county. I chose her deliberately different jurisdiction. No local connections, no chance of overlap with Janet's social circle. Angela was 55, sharp-eyed with salt and pepper hair pulled into a non-nonsense bun. Family law certifications covered her walls. She listened without interrupting, taking precise notes. When I finished, she set down her pen. "Most men would have confronted their wives by now," she said, shouted, made threats, destroyed their legal position. "The fact that you didn't tells me you're smarter than most." I don't feel smart, I said. I feel blind. She studied me. You suspect the affair has been going on longer. 18 months. I'll prove it. Angela nodded. Virginia law still considers adultery relevant. Proven infidelity can affect asset division and spousal support. But you need evidence documented, irrefutable. What kind? Photos, audio, paper trails. Virginia is a 1P party consent state. If you're part of a conversation, you can legally record it. Home security cameras are also legal, but you cannot confront her. Not yet. Once she knows, she'll destroy evidence. I asked about the retirement money. That's complicated. She said, retirement funds earned during marriage are usually marital property. However, if we establish a protected trust before she files and prove intent, structure, and financial conspiracy, we may shield part of it. How much time do I have? Unknown. If she files first, she controls the narrative. Temporary orders, asset freezes, everything. You need to move carefully but fast. What's my first step? A private investigator. Get proof of the affair and proof of coordination. Then we build strategy. She slid a card across the desk. Howard Russell. By day 3, I was sitting in a coffee shop across from him. Howard was 58, broad-shouldered with the look of a man who'd spent decades reading people. We sat in a back booth. Mrs. Foster says, "You need surveillance," he said. Cheating spouse. Cheating spouse with a financial advisor who profits from divorce. His eyebrows lifted. Brian Caldwell. You know him, know of him. He targets married women with wealthy husbands, helps orchestrate divorces, takes a percentage of the settlement. If he's involved, this isn't romance, it's business. My daughter's involved too. Howard's expression hardened. Then this is a conspiracy. How much can you spend? Whatever it takes. Good. I gave him schedules, addresses, routines, Janet's habits, Brian's office, Taylor's apartment. I'm installing security cameras, I said. Tell her it's for safety, he replied. That usually works. That afternoon, I came home with camera equipment. Janet barely looked up from her phone. Security cameras, I said. Break-ins nearby. Sounds smart, she said. I installed cameras over 2 days. Front door, back door, living room, cloud connected. I also carried a voice. Recorder everywhere. Every conversation, every call. By day 6, Howard called. I've got your photos. We met again. He slid an envelope across the table. Janet and Brian outside a restaurant laughing, her hand on his arm. Another photo entering a hotel. Timestamp. Thursday afternoon. The day she claimed book club. More photos. Different dates. Different hotels. 18 months. Howard explained Caldwell's history. Divorces patterns, clients, 12 similar cases, 20 to 30% consulting fees. I looked at Janet's smiling face and felt nothing. Not anger. Not grief. Clarity. They hadn't made a mistake. They'd made a plan. And now so had I. The hardest part wasn't gathering evidence. It was coming home every night and pretending I didn't know a thing. Week 2 became a masterclass in deception. I had farewell lunches with colleagues, packed up 32 years of office memorabilia, brought home plants and framed certifications. Janet helped me arrange a home office humming while she worked, occasionally touching my arm. I'm really proud of you, she said, eyes glistening. I hugged her and recorded every word on the device in my pocket. On day 10, the company sent the official retirement announcement. That evening over dinner, Janet finally asked the question I'd been waiting for. So, honey, the retirement package, what's the exact amount? I pushed pasta around my plate, made it look like mental calculation. After taxes and the annuity structure, about $1.2 million up front, the rest gets paid out over the next 20 years. I watched her face carefully. The smile stayed, but something flickered behind her eyes. Disappointment. Just a flash, quickly covered. Oh, she recovered smoothly. That's still wonderful, sweetheart. We'll be comfortable. More than comfortable, I said, squeezing her hand. $45,000 a year from the annuity on top of the lump sum. She kissed my cheek after dinner. Said she'd turn in early with a book. I went to my garage workshop, put on headphones, and listened to the audio from the recorder I'd hidden in our bedroom. At 9:43, Janet's voice came through crystal clear. Brian, it's me. Hey, beautiful. What's up? I asked him about the money tonight. It's less than we thought. Only $1.2 million up front. The rest is locked in some 20-year annuity. Silence, then Brian's smooth voice. How much in the annuity? He didn't say exactly, but even if it's another $1 million or $2 million spread over 20 years, that's way less liquidity than we hoped. It's still worth it. Brian's tone turned practiced reassuring. 1.2 million is plenty to work with, plus the house equity, his 401k, all the marital assets. We stick to the plan. I file through your lawyer next month, get temporary orders, freezing accounts, and by the time he knows what hit him, you'll have secured at least half. What about Taylor and Chad? Your daughter gets her cut like we discussed. Chad's business loan comes through. They get married. Everyone's happy. Stellan's going to be devastated. Stellan will be fine. He'll get his half on some retired engineer to play golf with. People move on. I sat in the quiet workshop transcribing key quotes into a password-protected document. My hands stayed steady. My face stayed blank. They thought I'd said 1.2 million. They were planning around a fraction of what I actually had. Perfect. The next day, I met Bill Thompson for coffee. Bill's been my closest friend since college contractor divorced 5 years back. Solid guy. The kind who shows up with a truck when you need help. You doing okay, man? He leaned forward, studying my face. You seem different. I wanted to tell him everything, but I couldn't risk it. Not yet. Just adjusting to retirement, I said. Weird not having a schedule. Bill didn't buy it. I could see it in his eyes. But he's the kind of guy who doesn't push. All right. But seriously, if you need anything day or night, you call me. Got it. I know. Thanks, brother. When this was over, Bill would be my first call. That weekend, Taylor came for dinner. She hugged me, asked how retirement felt, talked about wedding planning. Chad's business was doing well. They were looking at houses. I watched my daughter across the table, animated and happy, and couldn't reconcile this version with the one who'd agreed to help dismantle my financial security. Was she manipulated? Just greedy. Did she believe I deserved this somehow? I didn't ask. Not yet. After dinner, she took a selfie of us. Taylor, leaning against my shoulder, both smiling. Posted it to Instagram immediately, celebrating with Dad so proud. 43 likes in 5 minutes. Comments. Aw, sweet. Family goals. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. Every night that week, I lay beside Janet. Every night, she scrolled through her phone, probably texting Brian while I pretended to read. The emotional toll was exhausting. Some mornings I woke with my jaw aching from clenching my teeth all night, but it was necessary, every single second. By the end of week 2, I'd perfected the role. The oblivious husband, the trusting father, the retired engineer, completely unaware his family was plotting his destruction. They thought I was the fool too busy with my career to notice his wife's affair, too trusting to imagine his daughter's betrayal. But while they openly planned their treachery, I was building something they couldn't see, an ironclad legal case that would leave them with nothing. Howard Russell called me on day 14 with information that made everything worse. My daughter wasn't just complicit. She'd been trapped up. Mr. Coleman, I found something about your daughter. We need to meet. I drove to his office through afternoon traffic, hands tight on the wheel. Part of me didn't want to know. The other part needed every detail. Howard's office was sparse metal desk filing cabinet's wall of certifications. He slid a folder across the desk as I sat down. Bank records, he said. Brian Caldwell's been transferring money to Taylor for 8 months, small amounts at first, 500 here, a third zero in there, then bigger, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. I opened the folder. Page after page of transfers, each one dated, each one documented. Total, $65,000. The number hit like a fist. My daughter owed Brian Caldwell $65,000. There's more. Howard pulled out another document, recovered text messages. Took some work, but I've got contacts who can pull deleted conversations from cloud backups. He handed me printouts. I recognized Taylor's number. Brian's number. Brian to Taylor, March 15th. Don't worry about paying back, right? Away. Just help your mom. We'll call it even. Taylor to Brian, June 3rd. I need another $3,000 for Miami trip. Dad won't give it to me. Brian to Taylor, June 3rd. Of course. But remember, you owe me. When your mom gets her share, you'll get yours. Taylor to Brian. July 20th. Chad needs help with his business. We're looking at $50,000 for startup costs. Brian to Taylor. July 20th. Let's talk. I have some ideas. I read through message after message. Each one a knife twist. My daughter asking for money. Brian providing it. Always with subtle reminders about what she owed. Always connecting it to the divorce, to my retirement money, to her eventual share. She's been played, Howard said quietly. Classic financial grooming. He identified her weakness, shopping addiction, Instagram lifestyle pressure, and exploited it. Designer bags, expensive dinners, trips she couldn't afford on her salary. He made himself indispensable. How much does she make to $35,000 a year, marketing coordinator at a small firm. There's no way she could afford her lifestyle on that. What's her total debt? Howard's expression darkened. The $65,000 to Brian plus $40,000 in credit card debt, $105,000 total. For a 24-year-old, I sat back feeling sick. $15,000, nearly 3 times her annual income. This is his pattern. Howard continued. I dug deeper into those 12 previous cases. Same playbook every time. Target the wife, but also target someone close to her daughter's sister, best friend. Create financial dependency, make them complicit. Then when the divorce hits, they're too deep to back out. She's still my daughter, I know, but she's helping them plan your destruction. The question is whether she's a victim or a willing participant. I stared at the messages. Dad won't give it to me. Like I was the problem. Like my refusal to fund her unsustainable lifestyle justified conspiring against me. Maybe both, I said quietly. Maybe she's being manipulated and she's greedy. Howard nodded. That's usually how it works. People aren't simple. She probably started out as a victim, young, financially naive, vulnerable to someone like Caldwell. But at some point, she made a choice. She could have come to you. She could have asked for help. Instead, she chose this. After leaving Howard's office, I sat in my truck for 10 minutes before calling Angela Foster. We have a problem, I said when she answered. I explained everything, the $65,000, the messages, the pattern of financial grooming. Angela was quiet for a moment. Then this is financial exploitation. We can potentially charge Caldwell with loan-sharking usury financial abuse. It strengthens our case considerably. What about Taylor? What about her? Can we, I don't know, prove she was manipulated? Get her some kind of immunity. Silence longer this time. Stellan. Angela's voice was gentle but firm. I understand she's your daughter, but she's 24 years old, an adult. Those messages show clear intent to participate in defrauding you. Yes, Caldwell exploited her vulnerabilities. Yes, he's a predator. But that doesn't excuse her actions. She made choices. Adult choices with adult consequences. So, what do I do? What you've been doing. Document everything. Don't confront her. If she knows you're aware, she'll warn them. You'll lose your advantage. And frankly, you'll lose your case. Right now, we're building something solid. Criminal charges against Caldwell, conspiracy to commit fraud. If you tip them off, they cover their tracks, and you end up with nothing. She's my daughter, I know. And I'm sorry. This is the hardest part of cases like this when family betrays family. But you have to decide. Do you want justice, or do you want to protect someone who's actively working to destroy you? I hung up and sat in the parking lot watching people come and go. Normal people with normal problems. I thought about confronting Taylor, calling her right now, meeting for coffee, pulling her aside and saying, I know everything. I know about the money. I know about Brian. I know what you're planning. Please just stop. Come clean. We can fix this. But I couldn't. If I confronted her, she'd panic. She'd tell Janet. She'd tell Brian. They'd accelerate their plans, hide evidence, maybe file for divorce tomorrow instead of next month. I'd lose the element of surprise. I'd lose the 30 days until my retirement funds hit. I'd lose everything I'd been building. So I did nothing. I let my 24-year-old daughter walk deeper into a trap because saving her now might mean losing everything later. Week 3 was when they stopped being passive schemers and became active attackers. It started at breakfast on day 15. Janet sat down her coffee, studied me with manufactured concern. Honey, are you feeling all right? You seem different lately. Maybe retirement's affecting you more than you thought. I'm fine, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Well, if you need to talk to someone, she let it hang there, planting seeds. I smiled and squeezed her hand. I appreciate that, babe. The next morning, day 16, Taylor posted on Instagram. I opened it during my coffee. Photo of her looking worried, hand over heart. Caption. Worried about Dad's health lately. Prayers needed 200 comments already. Friends asking what was wrong. Taylor responding vaguely. Just going through some changes. Hoping he gets the help he needs. My daughter was publicly suggesting I needed mental help. Creating a narrative for her 800 followers that something was wrong with me. I took screenshots. Said nothing. Day 17. The phone calls started. Mr. Warren called first. Stellan, hope I'm not overstepping. But Janet's concerned about you. Said you've been acting paranoid, forgetful. Is everything all right? I'm fine, sir. Really? She mentioned you've been accusing her of things, making unusual accusations. My jaw tightened. Janet's mistaken. I appreciate your concern, but I promise I'm good. 20 minutes later, Bill Thompson called. Stell, what's going on, man? Janet just called. Said you're struggling, acting erratic. Brother, you can tell me if something's wrong. This was the moment. I needed Bill on my side, but couldn't reveal everything yet. Bill listened carefully. Janet's setting me up. I can't explain everything right now. It's complicated and I need more time, but I need you to trust me. I'm completely fine. This is part of her strategy. Silence then. Strategy for what? A divorce I didn't see coming. She's building a case that I'm mentally unstable, probably to challenge my retirement assets. But I'm documenting everything, working with lawyers, and I need you to know I'm lucid, rational, and in control. Can you trust me on this? Another pause. I could almost hear Bill processing. Jesus, still. Yeah, of course, I trust you. Whatever you need, brother. I'm here with thanks. Just if she calls again, play along. Act concerned. Don't let her know I told you. So got it. But when this is over, you're telling me everything over a very large bottle of whiskey. Deal. I hung up, feeling slightly less alone. On day 19, I drove 2 counties over to see an independent clinical psychologist. Dr. Helen Morrison, 60-something, wireframe glasses. I want a comprehensive mental health evaluation, I said. For legal purposes, 2 hours of testing, cognitive assessments, memory tests, depression, and anxiety screenings. At the end, she handed me a sealed report. Mr. Coleman, you're in excellent mental health. No signs of paranoia, memory impairment, or mood instability. Actually, you're sharp as a tack. I paid cash and locked the report in my truck's glove box. Janet would never know it existed, but when the time came, I'd have irrefutable proof. Day 20. Howard called. Your wife visited a psychiatrist yesterday, Dr. Leonard Pfizer. She was inside 40 minutes, looked pleased when she left. She's trying to get a statement about my concerning behavior. That would be my guess, building a medical narrative. That night, day 21, Janet was in the shower. I couldn't sleep. On impulse, I opened her nightstand drawer, found a leather-bound journal, the kind she'd never kept before in 26 years. I opened it, page after page of fabricated entries dated over the past 3 weeks. September 8th. Stellan seems increasingly controlling about money. Questions where I've been, suspicious of everything. September 12th. He accused me of hiding his keys, then found them in his own pocket. Won't admit he forgot. September 15th. His mood swings are getting worse. Snapped at me over nothing this morning. I'm starting to feel scared. September 18th. Talked to his former boss. Even Mr. Warren noticed changes. I don't know what to do. Every entry carefully crafted to paint me as unstable, controlling, paranoid. A man whose mental state was deteriorating. A man who couldn't be trusted with $4.1 million. I photographed every page with my phone, then placed the journal back exactly where I'd found it. Same position, same angle, like I'd never touched it. She was building a narrative, not just for the divorce, but for after. When my retirement money hit in 9 days, she planned to challenge my competence, claim I wasn't mentally fit to manage it, argue for conservatorship control. She thought of everything except that I knew. I climbed back into bed. Janet came out of the bathroom, climbed in beside me. "Good night, sweetheart," she said, kissing my cheek. "Good night." I lay there listening to her breathing even out. The woman next to me had spent the week systematically, destroying my reputation, my credibility, my sanity in the eyes of everyone I knew. And I documented every move. I photographed every page of that diary, every lie she'd written about me, and placed it back exactly where I'd found it. Let her think her plan was working. Let her believe I was falling apart because the more desperate they became, the more mistakes they'd make. If week 3 was psychological warfare, week 4 was financial combat. Day 22 and 23, they laid the groundwork. I didn't know it yet, but Brian was creating a fake power of attorney document. Janet was practicing my signature, tracing it from old tax returns and legal papers, until she could replicate it convincingly enough to fool a casual observer. They were preparing for a coordinated strike. On day 24, the attacks began. My insurance agent, Sandra Lewis, called that morning. "Mr. Coleman, just confirming your beneficiary change request, updating to Janet and Taylor Coleman as primary beneficiaries on your life insurance policy." I went cold. I made no such request. Oh. A pause. "We received a signed document 3 days ago. Let me pull it up. Yes, it has your signature dated September 21st. So Sandra, I did not sign that document. That's not my signature. Someone's committing fraud." Her voice turned serious. "I'll flag this immediately and start an investigation. We'll need to file a report. Do it and send me copies of everything." That afternoon, my bank manager, Stephen Clark, called Mr. Coleman. "There's a large withdrawal pending approval, $100,000 from your joint savings account. It's flagged because of the amount, so I wanted to verify before processing." My hand tightened on the phone. "Stephen, I did not authorize any withdrawal. Who submitted the request?" "It came through online banking yesterday with proper credentials and a supporting authorization form." "Freeze it. Freeze the transaction immediately. And I want copies of every document they submitted." "Understood. I'm canceling the transaction now." I hung up and sat in my truck, heart pounding. 2 attempts in 1 day. Insurance beneficiaries and bank withdrawal. They weren't just planning anymore. They were actively trying to steal from me. On day 25, I went on the offensive. I called every financial institution where Janet and I held joint accounts. Bank accounts, credit cards, investment accounts, everything. I need to freeze all transactions on these accounts, pending investigation of suspected fraud. One by one, I lock them down. Joint access suspended. No withdrawals, no charges, nothing. That afternoon, Janet came home furious. "What happened to our accounts?" She threw her purse on the kitchen counter. "My credit card was declined at the store. I called the bank and they said the accounts are frozen." I looked up from my newspaper, perfectly calm. "Bank. Flagged unusual activity. Identity theft protection kicked in automatically. I'll sort it out tomorrow." Identity theft. Her eyes narrowed. "What unusual activity?" Someone tried to withdraw $100,000. Obviously not us, so the bank locked everything down as a precaution. I watched her face. The anger flickered into something else. Worry, calculation. She hadn't expected the bank to catch it so fast. "Oh well, get it fixed," she snapped. "I can't even buy groceries. I'll handle it tomorrow, babe. Promise." She stormed upstairs. I returned to my newspaper, heart rate steady. On day 26, Howard called with his most damning evidence yet. "You need to see these photos. Your wife Caldwell and your daughter met with a mortgage broker this morning. Valerie Scott's office downtown. I've got surveillance from across the street." I drove to Howard's office within the hour. He spread photos across his desk, clear images through the broker's plate. Glass window, Janet, Brian, and Taylor sitting at a conference table. Documents spread between them, all three leaning in discussing something. Brian pointing at paperwork, Janet nodding, Taylor signing something. "They're trying to refinance your house," Howard said. "Extract the equity, $300,000 based on current market value of $850. They'd need forged signatures to do it without your knowledge." I stared at the photo of my daughter, 24 years old, sitting at that table, actively participating, not manipulated, not coerced, making choices. "Can you get closer shots?" Already did. He slid over additional photos. Taylor's face clearly visible, smiling, engaged in the conversation. At one point, she was laughing at something Brian said. She looked happy. On day 27, I met Angela Foster at her office and showed her everything. The insurance fraud attempt, the bank withdrawal, the mortgage broker photos, the timeline of coordinated attacks. She examined the evidence with professional intensity. "This is beyond divorce fraud," she said finally. "This is felony document forgery, identity theft, attempted grand larceny. I'm filing a police report today. We're building a criminal case now, not just a civil one." "How solid is it to vary?" "The bank has the forged authorization. Insurance company has the fake beneficiary change. And these photos," she tapped the mortgage broker, "images show conspiracy. All three of them together actively engaged in fraudulent activity." That's criminal conspiracy to commit fraud. What about Taylor? Angela's expression softened slightly. She's 24, an adult sitting at that table voluntarily. The photos prove active participation, not just passive knowledge. I'm sorry, Stellan, but your daughter's going to face charges too. That evening, Howard sent additional information. Brian had created fake invoices claiming I owed him $150,000 for financial advisory services over the past 18 months. Taylor had written a letter with my supposed signature promising her $80,000 for her wedding expenses. They were manufacturing a paper trail, fake debts, fake promises, all designed to justify taking money they had no right to. When I looked at that photo, my daughter sitting at a table with her mother and Brian Caldwell, all three conspiring to forge my signature and steal our home equity, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just Janet's betrayal anymore. This was my own daughter actively working to destroy me financially, and that changed everything. I started feeling tired on day 23. At first, I just thought it was stress. The nausea came next, then dizziness, a persistent fatigue that made even simple tasks feel exhausting. I'd wake up feeling drained, struggle through the day, collapse into bed early. By day 25, it was getting worse. I'd sit at the breakfast table and the room would spin slightly. My hands trembled when I reached for my coffee. Janet would watch me with what looked like concern. "Honey, you don't look well. Maybe you should see a doctor. Just the adjustment period." I'd say retirement's a big change, but I knew something was wrong. This wasn't stress, this was physical. Something happening inside my body that I couldn't control. On day 26, I started paying attention to patterns. I felt worse in the mornings after breakfast, better by afternoon if I'd skipped lunch at home. On days when I grabbed fast food or ate at a restaurant, I'd feel almost normal by evening. But meals Janet prepared, within an hour the symptoms would return. I sat in my truck outside a diner eating a burger, thinking back. When did this start? Day 23, right after I'd frozen the bank accounts, right after their financial fraud attempts had failed. The thought came unbidden, unwelcome. She wouldn't, would she? I wanted to dismiss it. Too extreme, too evil. But I'd already caught her forging my signature, already found her fake diary, already watched her conspire with Brian and our daughter to steal our home equity. Was poisoning really that much further? On day 27, I decided to test my hypothesis. "Hey, babe," I said at breakfast. "I'm going to try a new diet, read an article about gut health and retirement. Figured I'd buy some prepared meals, try eating cleaner for a while." Janet looked up from her coffee. Something flickered across her face. Disappointment, concern. It passed too quickly to read. "Whatever you think is best, sweetheart." I spent the day eating only food I'd bought myself or from restaurants. Prepared meals from the grocery store, a sandwich from a shop downtown, dinner at a chain restaurant. By that evening, I felt better, significantly better, clear-headed. The nausea faded. My hands stopped, trembling. The next morning, day 28, I felt almost normal. That's when I knew for certain. On day 27, while Janet was at the grocery store, I'd gone into the kitchen, found the coffee she'd made me that morning still half full in my mug, poured it into a clean jar, sealed it, labeled it with the date. Then I'd found yesterday's leftover soup in the refrigerator, the soup she'd insisted I eat for dinner. Another jar, another seal, another date. I gave them to Howard that afternoon. "Send these to a lab," I said. "Out-of-state, independent facility. I need to know what's in them." Howard studied my face. "You think she's just test them, please?" On day 28, Howard called. His voice was tight. "Stellan, you need to sit down." I was already sitting in my truck parked outside the hardware store. What did they find? The lab found warfarin in both samples, coffee and soup. My blood ran cold. Warfarin, rat, poison, also used as a blood thinner medication. Small doses over time can cause exactly the symptoms you described. Fatigue, nausea, dizziness. Larger doses can cause internal bleeding, organ damage. It's dangerous, Stellan. Potentially lethal if continued. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, watching normal people go about normal shopping. A woman loading mulch into her trunk. A couple arguing over paint colors. Life continuing while mine had just confirmed my worst suspicion. How long would I have to take it to? No. to cause serious harm depends on dosage and your body weight. But we're talking days to weeks of consistent exposure. You stopped in time. That afternoon, Bill Thompson stopped by unexpectedly. He took one look at me and his face went pale. Jesus, Stell, you look terrible. This isn't normal stress. When's the last time you saw a doctor? I couldn't tell him. Not yet. Not about the poison. But his reaction confirmed what I already knew. The damage was visible, real, and getting checked out soon. I said, promise. After Bill left, I sat in my workshop with the lab report, black and white proof that my wife had been slowly poisoning me, not just betraying me financially, not just destroying my reputation, actually harming me physically, trying to make me weak, maybe trying to make me disappear entirely. I thought about what would happen if I died. Janet would inherit everything. The house, the retirement money hitting the account in 2 days, the life insurance policy. I checked the documents, $1.2 million. No messy divorce, no splitting assets, no fraud investigation, just a grieving widow collecting insurance money while her lover and daughter waited in the wings. Clean, simple, profitable. I called Angela Foster. We need to talk. They've escalated. How bad? And worse. Then fraud. I have lab results showing warfare and in my food. They're not just trying to steal from me anymore. They're trying to harm me. Maybe worse. Silence. Then I'm filing an emergency motion tomorrow morning. We're getting a restraining order and moving up our timeline. This is beyond civil court now, Stellan. This is serious criminal activity. I called Howard next. I need you to increase surveillance. Every movement, every meeting, every person they talk to. We're in the end game now. That night I lay in bed beside Janet. She kissed my cheek, asked how I was feeling. Still a little tired, I said. But better. Good, she whispered. Get some rest, sweetheart. I stared at the ceiling after she fell asleep. The woman who'd promised to love me in sickness and health had been making me sick. The mother of my child had been poisoning the father of her daughter. 26 years of marriage had led to this me lying next to someone actively trying to harm me. I looked at that lab report, black and white proof that my wife had been slowly harming me, and made my decision. I wouldn't confront her. I wouldn't show fear. I'd let her think the poison was working. Let her believe I was getting weaker because desperate people make mistakes, and I needed her to make one big enough to end this forever. Day 28 was when they crossed the line from criminals to something far worse. That evening at 7, I wasn't home. I told Janet I was staying at Bill's place, needed some space, some guy time. She'd seemed relieved, but my security cameras were still running. I sat in Angela Foster's office, with Howard Russell laptop open watching the live feed from my dining room. 4 people gathered around my table, Janet, Brian, Caldwell Taylor, and Chad Brooks. I turned up the volume. Angela leaned in beside me. Before I tell you what was on that recording, the words my wife, my daughter, and Brian Caldwell said about ending my life, I want to ask you something. If you were in my position, would you have been able to stay calm? Would you have had the strength to let them keep talking, knowing that every word they spoke was sealing their own fate? Drop a comment below and let me know. And if you're invested in this story, hit that subscribe button because what happens next will shock you. And please note some details in this story may be fictionalized or adapted for illustrative purposes if you're not comfortable with that. Feel free to stop here and find content that's a better fit for you. Brian spoke first. The poison isn't working fast enough. He's not eating at home anymore. We need something more definitive. Janet's voice was quiet. What are you suggesting? An accident? Brian's tone was matter-of-fact. Clinical. He mentioned Bill's birthday party at the lake this weekend. Mountain roads, sharp turns, if his brakes failed on one of those curves. My chest tightened. Taylor shifted in her seat. How would that happen? Chad leaned forward, and for a moment my heart stopped. Then he said exactly what we'd planned. I know a bit about cars. Brake lines can be cut. Small incision in the right place. Fluid drains slowly while he's driving. By the time he hits those mountain roads, no brakes. Would look like mechanical failure. Corrosion happens all the time with older vehicles. Janet was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice wavered. Are we really doing this? Brian reached across, squeezed her hand. It's him or us. He has evidence. You heard what the lawyer said. If he files first, we lose everything. We don't have any other choice. And Janet, the life insurance is 1.2 million. Think about it. Taylor's voice came next, clearer, more certain than her mother's. And we inherit everything. The house, the retirement money. Mom, we'd be set for life. Chad and I could get married, start fresh, no debt. I watched my daughter's face on the screen. 24 years old, agreeing to end my life so she could pay off credit cards and have a nice wedding. My hands were shaking. I set down the coffee mug before I dropped it. Angela's hand touched my shoulder. We're recording all of this, every single word. 1.2 million, Janet repeated softly. And the retirement package, 4.1 million, plus the house equity. Brian added, you're looking at close to 6 million. Total, after we liquidate everything. Split 3 ways, you Taylor and me. 2 million each, tax-free on the insurance when Janet asked this weekend. Bill's party is Saturday. Today's Tuesday, gives us time to prepare. Chad spoke up again. I'll handle the car. Friday night, late after he's asleep, takes 10 minutes. He won't notice anything until he's halfway up the mountain. And if someone asks questions, Janet's voice. Brian smiled. I could hear it in his tone. Tragic accident. 59-year-old man recently retired, stressed from life changes. Brake failure on a mountain road. Happens every year. There won't be questions. The meeting broke up around 80. Chad stood, grabbed his jacket. I should head out. Don't want him getting suspicious if I'm here too long. He left through the front door. I watched on camera as he climbed into his truck. 20 minutes later, I sat across from Chad Brooks in a diner 15 miles from my house. He reached under his shirt, pulled out a small digital recorder, set it on the table between us. Ah, Mr. Coleman, I got it all. Every word they said. I stared at the device, then at the young man across from me, 26 years old, Taylor's fiancé, the guy who was supposed to cut my bra lines. 2 days ago, day 26, I'd made a choice. While Howard was following Janet to the mortgage broker, I'd followed Chad. Pulled up beside him at a gas station, asked him to take a walk with me. I know what they're asking you to do, I'd said. I know about Taylor's debt. I know about Brian's loans to her. I know everything. Chad had gone pale. You have a choice, I'd continued. Go to prison with them when this falls apart, and it will fall apart, or help me stop this. Help me save my life and your own. What do you want? Maya Wire. Record everything. When this is over, I'll make sure the DA knows you cooperated. Immunity deal. You walk away clean. Start over. Chad had stood there for a long time, then nodded. Now sitting in the diner, he pushed the recorder toward me. I did what you asked. I'm done with them, with all of it. You did the right thing. Taylor's going to hate me. Taylor's going to prison where she belongs. At 9:00, Angela called DA James Whitaker from her office, put him on speaker. Detective Rachel Hammond joined the call. We have evidence of conspiracy to commit serious harm, Angela said. Multiple conspirators, multiple attack methods. I'm sending you files now. She uploaded everything. Lab results showing warfare and poisoning. Forged documents from the insurance and bank fraud attempts. Tonight's recording from Chad's wire. The security camera footage showing all 4 conspirators present. How solid is this? Whitaker asked. Ironclad. We have recordings, forensic evidence, witnesses, documentary proof, and one of the conspirators is cooperating. Who's the target? My client, Stellan. Coleman, his wife, daughter, and 2 accomplices have attempted psychological manipulation, financial fraud poisoning, and tonight they planned a staged accident. Silence on the line. Then when were they planning to act? This weekend, day after tomorrow, we'll run a sting operation. Let them think they're proceeding. Catch them in the act. I'll have Detective Hammond coordinate. We'll need your cooperation, Mr. Coleman. And you have it, I said. Day 30, Whitaker continued. That's when the retirement money hits your account. Correct. Then that's when we move. Let them think they have one more day. Let them get desperate. Then we take them all down at once. When I played back Chad's recording, my wife, my daughter, and her lover, planning to stage my departure from this world, I felt something I'd been holding in for 4 weeks finally break free. Not tears, not rage, something else entirely. Permission. permission to do whatever was necessary to survive. They'd made this a fight for my survival. While police prepared the sting operation, I had one final puzzle piece to understand. Donna Phillips Howard called that morning day 29. I've been watching her for the past week. She's lost weight, cries in her car during lunch breaks, shows signs of serious depression. Stellan, I don't think she's a willing participant in this. At 10:00, Angela and I met Donna at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. When she walked in and saw us sitting there, her face went white. Am I being arrested? No, Angela said gently. We want to talk. Please sit down. Donna sat, hands shaking. She looked thinner than in the employee photo I'd seen. Dark circles under her eyes, the appearance of someone who hadn't slept properly in months. I'm so sorry, Mr. Coleman. Tears started immediately. I never wanted to harm you. I swear I didn't. Why did you forward my retirement file to Brian Caldwell? She looked down at her coffee cup. Because he made me. Made you. How? Donna took a breath. I was involved with Brian 2 years ago, 2018, before your wife. It was brief, maybe 3 months. I thought he cared about me. Then I found out he was seeing other people. I ended it, and a week later he contacted me, said he had videos, recordings from his bedroom, intimate moments. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I didn't know about the cameras. He'd hidden them, recorded everything without my knowledge. Angela leaned forward. He blackmailed you. Yes. Donna pulled out her phone with trembling hands. He still has the videos, still threatens me with them. She showed us text messages. I read them feeling sick. Brian, send me Coleman's retirement file, or I release these videos to your workplace, to your ex-husband, to your daughter's school. Donna, please don't. I'll lose my job. My daughter will. Brian, then do what I ask. There were dozens more, each one a threat, each one leveraging the same videos against her. Your daughter? I asked. Lily, she's 8 years old. Donna's voice broke. He threatened to send them to her school. The other kids would. Lily would see. I couldn't let that happen. So when he demanded your file, I sent it. I had no choice. She pulled up a photo on her phone. A little girl with brown hair and pigtails smiling at the camera. 8 years old, innocent, happy. She looked like Taylor had at that age. Same smile, same trusting eyes. Something inside me broke. I'd been so focused on my own betrayal, my wife, my daughter, the conspiracy against me, that I hadn't considered there might be other victims, other people Brian Caldwell had destroyed along the way. He's not just greedy, I said quietly. He's a predator. I should have come to you, Donna said. Should have told someone, but I was terrified. I'm a single mother. If those videos got out, I'd lose my job. My ex-husband would use them in custody hearings. And Lily, she couldn't finish. Angela spoke carefully. Donna, we need you to testify against him. We're building a criminal case, fraud, blackmail, conspiracy. Your testimony about the blackmail would be crucial. He'll release the videos. Not if he's in prison, I said. And Angela can get a court order sealing that evidence. It would never be made public. No one would see it. Not your employer, not your ex-husband, not Lily's school. No one. Donna looked at me confused. Why are you helping me? I betrayed you. I gave him access to your private information. Because you're a victim just like me. The difference is I can fight back. You couldn't. But now we'll fight together. Brian Caldwell doesn't get to destroy any more lives. She started crying again. Different tears this time. Relief, maybe, or hope. There are others, she said after a moment. I'm not the only one. He's done this to at least 3 other women I know of. Same pattern, relationship, hidden recordings, breakup, blackmail. He uses them for whatever he needs. Information, money, alibis. He's been doing it for years. The scope of it was staggering. Brian wasn't just my wife's lover. He was a serial predator who'd built a career out of manipulating, blackmailing, and exploiting vulnerable people. The divorces were just one part of his operation. The blackmail was another. Everything designed to extract maximum profit while leaving destruction in in his wake. "I'll testify," Donna said finally. "If you can protect Lily, if you can keep those videos sealed, I'll tell them everything." You have my word," Angela said, "and Mr. Coleman's." After Donna left, I sat in the cafe with Angela, staring at my cold coffee. "She's been living in terror for 2 years," I said, "forced to help him destroy me because he threatened her child, Brian." "Caldwell is worse than we thought," Angela replied. "This isn't just about you anymore. It's about stopping him before he ruins anyone else." "Tomorrow," I said. "Tomorrow we end this." When I watched Donna Phillips walk away, a single mother terrorized by the same man trying to end my life, I understood something clearly. Brian Caldwell wasn't just greedy. He was a predator who destroyed lives for profit, and tomorrow we would stop him forever. Day 29 was the last night of my old life. Everything after would be different. At 6 I sat at our dining table with Janet and Taylor. They smiled, talked about weekend plans, normal conversation, surface-level pleasantries masking the conspiracy beneath. "Drive carefully to Bill's party tomorrow, sweetheart," Janet said, passing me the salad bowl. "Those mountain roads can be dangerous." I nodded. "I will." After dinner, my phone buzzed. Text from Janet. "Drive safe tomorrow. Love you." She sent it while knowing Chad was supposed to cut my brake lines tonight, while knowing those mountain roads might be the last thing I ever saw. Another buzz. "Taylor, have fun at the lake. Dad love you," from the daughter who'd sat at a mortgage broker's table planning to steal my home equity, who'd agreed to a plan that could end my life so she could pay off credit cards. I saved both messages. Evidence of their hypocrisy, proof they could smile and say, "Love you," while planning something unthinkable. I looked at Taylor across the table, 24 years old, laughing at something on her phone. I tried to find the child I remembered, the 5-year-old who'd called me her hero, the little girl who'd believed I could fix anything. When did I lose her, or was that child ever real? My mind drifted back. Christmas morning, 2001. Taylor was 5 years old, sitting cross-legged in front of the tree in her red pajamas with white snowflakes. We'd been up since 6. She'd woken us at dawn, too excited to wait. "Can I open this one, Daddy, please?" "Go ahead, sweetheart." She'd torn through the wrapping paper, gasped when she saw the dollhouse inside. The one she'd been asking for since October. Hand-built 3 stories, working lights. I'd spent 2 months in the garage building it, installing tiny electrical fixtures, painting each room a different color. "Daddy, you're the best." She'd launched herself at me, tiny arms wrapping around my neck, squeezing tight. "I love you so much." Janet had been there too, smiling. We'd been happy then, or at least I'd thought we were. I love you too, princess." I'd whispered into Taylor's hair. I blinked. The memory faded. Returned to the present, to my adult daughter sitting across from me, texting her fiancé about brake lines and staged accidents. The little girl in the red pajamas felt like someone else's memory, someone else's daughter. Where did I lose her? At what point did "I love you so much" become "we'd be set for life"? Or maybe I'd never known her at all. At 8 I met Angela at her office. Final paperwork, final coordination. "Tomorrow morning, 9:15, the money hits your account," she said, sliding documents across her desk. "By 10:30, it transfers to the trust. By 11, it's locked. They'll never touch it. And the arrests, noon, simultaneous. We take all 4 at once. Janet, Brian, Taylor, and Will staged Chad's arrest earlier to maintain his cover. Detective Hammond is coordinating with the DA's office." At 9:30, I sat in a conference room at the police station. Detective Rachel Hammond stood at the head of the table reviewing the operation one final time. Angela Howard and Chad listened intently. 2 a.m. Chad approaches the Coleman residence. Hammond said appears to tamper with the vehicle. Neighbors might see, that's fine. We want witnesses to the attempt. At 2:15, patrol units arrest Chad on scene. By morning, Brian and the others will believe their plan is proceeding. Chad looked nervous. "What if they try to contact me? Don't answer. You're in custody. Let them panic. Panic makes people sloppy. He's noon arrests," Hammond continued. Janet Coleman at the residence, Brian Caldwell at his office, Taylor Coleman at her apartment. Clean, coordinated, no warning. Mr. Coleman, you'll be with us at the station during the arrests. For your safety and as a witness, I nodded. It was real now, hours away. No turning back. At 11 SAU, I arrived at Bill Thompson's house. He'd offered his guest room days ago, before he knew the full story. Now, sitting in his living room, whiskey in hand, he asked the question I'd been avoiding. Are you finally going to tell me what's really happening? So, I told him, not everything that would take hours, but enough. The affair, the conspiracy, the poison, the plan to cut my bra lines, tomorrow's sting operation. Bill sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Jesus, your own daughter. Yes, more silence. He poured himself another drink. You're the strongest man I know, he said quietly. I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm barely holding together. One. That's what strength is. Still holding together when everything's falling apart. I couldn't sleep. Lay on Bill's couch in the dark, staring at the ceiling. My mind wouldn't stop. 26 years of marriage, every anniversary, every holiday, every morning waking up beside someone I thought I knew. Had Janet ever loved me, or had I been useful until I wasn't? And Taylor, the little girl in the red pajamas, where had she gone? What had I missed? What had I done wrong? Maybe I'd worked too much. Maybe I'd been distant. Maybe I'd failed as a father without realizing it. Or maybe some people are just capable of cruelty I'll never understand. At 1:30 in the morning, my phone lit up. Detective Hammond. Operation begins. Chad on his way to your house. I stared at that text. The message that would end my marriage, destroy my family, and save my life. I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. But I'd learned something in the past month. Sometimes survival isn't about winning. It's about refusing to let betrayers drag you down with them. The trap was set at 2 in the morning. By noon, everything would be over. I sat in Angela Foster's office at 1 in the morning on September 30th, watching a live feed on a laptop screen. The feed showed my garage from 3 different angles, cameras Detective Rachel Hammond's team had installed 2 days earlier. My house looked peaceful in the darkness. Janet was asleep upstairs, completely unaware that her entire world was about to collapse. At exactly 2:00, headlights appeared on the screen. Chad Brooks pulled into my driveway, killed the engine, and stepped out of his truck. He moved quickly toward the garage, glancing over his shoulder twice. Even though this was staged, even though Chad was working with us, watching him approach my vehicle made my stomach tighten. Angela sat beside me, her phone in hand, connected directly to Detective Hammond. Howard Russell stood behind us, arms crossed, watching intently. Chad opened the garage door. We'd left it unlocked as planned, and slid underneath my car with a flashlight and a bag of tools. For the next 15 minutes, he positioned himself under the brake line, made exaggerated movements with his hands, and carefully arranged wrenches and cutting tools on the garage floor. He was building a crime scene, creating evidence of attempted harm that would be impossible to deny. At 2:23, squad cars rolled silently down my street, lights off. They stopped in front of my house. 6 officers emerged, moving quickly and quietly. Detective Hammond led them into the garage. But Chad Brooks, don't move hands where we can see them. Chad froze beneath my car tools in hand, exactly as planned. The officers pulled him out, cuffed him, and read him his rights. I watched the entire arrest on the screen, my heart pounding so hard I thought Angela could hear it. Phase 1 complete, she said quietly. They transported Chad to the station. At 2:45, he gave his full confession, scripted, rehearsed, but entirely truthful. He named Janet Coleman, Brian Caldwell, and Taylor Coleman as co-conspirators. He described the conspiracy meeting on September 28th in detail. He turned over the audio recordings he'd made that night, the ones that captured my wife, my daughter, and Brian Caldwell discussing how to stage my passing to look like an accident. Angela's phone buzzed. She listened for a moment, then looked at me. Detective Hammond says the confession is solid. The recordings are clear. The district attorney is signing the arrest warrants now. I nodded, unable to speak. The next 6 hours moved in a strange blur of waiting and watching. Angela and I stayed in her office. Howard brought coffee. None of us drank it. At 9:15 in the morning, my phone chimed. I looked at the screen and saw a notification from my bank. Deposit received $4 million. 32 years of my life. Every early morning, every late night, every project, every sacrifice, every mile I'd driven, and every decision I'd made. All of it was represented by those numbers on the screen. My hands started shaking. "It's here," I said. Angela moved immediately. She opened her laptop and logged into the trust account we'd established 2 weeks earlier, the Stellan Coleman Retirement Trust, domiciled at a different bank, structured under Virginia law to be untouchable in divorce proceedings. She initiated the transfer with swift, practiced keystrokes. I watched the money move from my personal account into the trust. $4.1 million shifting from one institution to another in a matter of seconds. At 10:30, Angela leaned back in her chair. Transfer complete. At 11, she made one final call to the trust administrator. "Lock it," she said. She hung up and turned to me. "Done. It's ironclad under Virginia law. They can't touch it. Not Janet, not Brian, not any attorney they hire. That money is protected." For the first time in 30 days, I took a full breath. At exactly noon, Detective Rachel Hammond and 4 uniformed officers arrived at my house. I wasn't there. I was still in Angela's office, but Howard had a contact on the scene who sent updates in real time. Janet answered the door in her robe, confused. "Can I help you? I'm Janet Coleman. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, financial exploitation, and conspiracy to cause intentional harm." They cuffed her in the doorway. According to Howard's contact, she didn't resist. She just kept repeating, "There must be some mistake." At the same moment, 2 officers arrived at Taylor's apartment downtown. They arrested her on similar charges. She called for her mother. No one answered. Across town, FBI agents and Assistant U.S. Attorney Gregory Allen walked into Brian Caldwell's office at Caldwell Financial Services. They arrested him in front of his staff and 3 clients. He was escorted out in handcuffs, his face pale, his confidence finally shattered. Donna Phillips was briefly detained at her workplace procedure required it since her name appeared in the financial records. But Angela arrived within 20 minutes with documentation of the immunity agreement. Donna was released immediately, shaken but free. At 12:30, process server Craig Mitchell walked into the police station where Janet was being processed. He handed her a manila envelope. She opened it, still handcuffed, and pulled out the divorce petition. Detective Hammond sent me a photo. I saw Janet's face in that image. The shock, then the comprehension, then the devastating realization. He knew, she whispered to the officer beside her. He knew everything. I sat in Angela's office and watched the local news on her computer. The anchor's face was serious as the headline scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Calquid and daughter arrested in conspiracy against husband. The reporter described the charges: fraud, forgery, financial exploitation, conspiracy to cause harm. They didn't name anyone yet, but they would soon. Howard stood behind me, one hand on my shoulder. Angela sat across from me, exhausted but steady. "It's over," she said. I nodded, but I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel relieved. I felt empty. They had spent 30 days plotting to destroy me. I had spent 30 days building a case that would put them behind bars. And now sitting in Angela's office watching the news cycle through stories of fraud and betrayal and broken families. I felt something I hadn't felt in a month. Safety, but not peace. That would take much longer. Angela had arranged for me to see them before they could meet with attorneys. I almost said no. Almost. But I needed them to know. I needed them to understand that I had seen everything, known everything, and still outplayed them at every turn. So at 3 hours on, afternoon of September 30th, I walked into the police station for the last time as a married man. Detective Rachel Hammond met me at the entrance. She studied my face for a moment, then nodded toward the back hallway. 5 minutes, Mr. Coleman. That's all I can give you. That's all I need. She led me to an interview room, sterile, windowless, with a metal table bolted to the floor. She opened the door and stepped aside. Janet and Taylor sat across from each other at the table, both still in the clothes they'd been arrested in. Taylor's mascara was smudged from crying. Janet's hands were clasped tightly in front of her, her wedding ring still on her finger. They looked up when I entered. For a moment, neither of them moved. They just stared at me, healthy, steady, very much alive. Janet's mouth opened slightly. You're fine. Did you think I wouldn't be? I stepped into the room and closed the door behind me. Angela stood just outside, visible through the small window, a silent witness to what was about to happen. Janet started to stand. Stellan, I can explain. Sit down. She sat. I pulled a folder from under my arm and set it on the table between us. You really thought I wouldn't notice the poison in my coffee, the forged documents, the plan to cut my brake line? Janet's face went pale. Taylor looked away, tears streaming down her cheeks. Let me walk you through this, I said, opening the folder. June 15th, you met Brian Caldwell at the Riverside Hotel, room 237. I have photographs. I slid the first image across the table. Janet flinched. July the 2nd. You attempted to forge a power of attorney using my signature. I have the documents. The bank flagged it. Another page. Another flinch. July 18th. You started adding warfare into my food. The independent lab has the results. Samples from my coffee from the soup you made from the casserole you served on August 3rd. I stacked the lab reports in front of her one by one last night. I continued, my voice steady. Chad Brooks went into my garage and staged cutting my brake line. The police recorded the entire thing. Janet's eyes widened. Chad, he's been working with me for 3 days right now. He's giving his full testimony to the district attorney. Every word you said at that meeting on September 28th, every plan, every detail, every sick thing you discussed, he recorded it all. Taylor let out a choked sob. Daddy, I'm so sorry I didn't. Don't call me that. I turned to face my daughter, the child I had raised, the girl I had loved more than anything in the world. And you lost that right when you sat in that meeting and agreed to end my life. I was manipulated, Taylor cried. Brian said, You're 24 years old, Taylor. You made a choice, an adult choice. You sat at a table with your mother and her lover and discussed how to stage my passing to look like an accident so you could split $4 million. That wasn't manipulation. That was greed. She buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. I turned back to Janet. You spent 1 month plotting to destroy me. I spent 1 month building the evidence that will put you in prison. The $4.1 million you wanted so badly, it's in a protected trust. You'll never touch a single cent of it. The house is mine. The savings accounts are mine. Everything we built, everything I earned, stays with me. Janet's voice was barely a whisper. Stellan, please. You're facing 25 years. All 3 of you. Conspiracy, fraud, attempted harm. The district attorney has recordings, lab results, financial documents, and a cooperating witness. You have nothing. I closed the folder and tucked it back under my arm. I loved you once, I said to Janet. Or I loved the person I thought you were. I don't know if that person ever really existed, but whoever you actually are, I want you to know something I saw through you from the very beginning. From the moment I overheard that phone call on September 1st, I knew. And every day after that, I watched you. I documented you. I let you believe you were winning so you would keep digging your own grave deeper. Her face crumpled. How could you? Oh, how could I? My voice rose for the first time. How could I? You tried to poison me, Janet. You forged my signature. You conspired to make my death look like an accident. Don't you dare ask me how I could do anything. I turned to Taylor one last time. I gave you everything. I paid for your education. I supported your dreams. I would have walked through fire for you, and you repaid me by sitting in a room with 2 criminals and agreeing to end my life for money. Daddy, please. Taylor reached toward me, her voice breaking. You're not sorry you did it? I said quietly. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. I walked to the door. Behind me, Taylor was sobbing. Janet sat frozen, staring at the folder I'd left on the table. I knocked once. Detective Hammond opened the door. Wait, Janet said. Steen, wait. I didn't turn around. I stepped through the doorway and heard the lock click behind me. Angela was waiting in the hallway. She didn't say anything. She just walked beside me as we made our way through the station, past the officers and the intake desks and the other families dealing with their own tragedies. When we stepped outside, the September sun was still high in the sky. The air was warm. The world looked exactly the same as it had that morning. But I wasn't the same. I stood on the steps of the police station, free and victorious and utterly alone. "Are you all right?" Angela asked. I didn't answer right away. I watched the cars pass on the street, the people walking by, all of them going about their ordinary lives, unaware that mine had just ended and begun again in the same breath. I won," I said finally. Angela nodded. "You did. Then why does it feel like I lost everything?" She didn't have an answer for that. Neither did I. I had spent 26 years building a life with Janet. I had raised a daughter. I had believed in a family that never actually existed, and in 30 days I had watched all of it collapse. Not because I failed, but because they chose to destroy it. They had tried to ruin me. Instead, I had watched them ruin themselves, and somehow that was worse than any betrayal. The arrests made the front page. Wife and daughter conspire against retired engineer. The headline was everywhere. I woke up on October 2nd, day 31, to find 3 news vans parked on my street. Reporters stood on my lawn with microphones, cameramen filming my house from every angle. I closed the blinds and stayed inside. My phone rang nonstop. Journalists asking for interviews. Former colleagues expressing shock. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years reaching out with questions disguised as concern. I stopped answering. The headlines multiplied. Local news first, then regional. By the end of the week, the story went national. Husband uncovers month-long plot to end his life. Everything I had fought to keep private was now public. The affair, the poison, the forged documents, the staged accident. I had won, but winning came at the cost of privacy, peace, and the last remaining fragments of the life I thought I had. On October 3rd, my neighbor Alice Henderson knocked on my door. She was 72, a widow who had lived next door for 15 years. She'd brought casseroles when Taylor was sick as a child. She'd attended our anniversary parties. "I always thought Janet was such a devoted wife," she said softly. "I'm so sorry, Stellan. I never would have guessed." I nodded, unsure how to respond. How do you accept sympathy for something you yourself failed to see for 26 years? Not everyone was kind. Some neighbors stared when I checked the mail. Others whispered when I drove past. I became the man whose wife tried to poison him. A curiosity, a tragedy, a warning. On October 5th, day 33, I attended the arraignment. The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the back rows. I sat in the front beside Angela, flanked by Detective Rachel Hammond and Howard Russell. When Janet Taylor and Brian were brought in, all 3 wore orange jumpsuits and handcuffs. I hadn't seen them since the police station. Janet looked smaller, stripped of makeup, her hair pulled back. Taylor wouldn't meet my eyes. Brian stared straight ahead, jaw tight. The charges were read aloud. Conspiracy to commit fraud, financial exploitation, forgery, conspiracy to cause intentional harm. The list lasted nearly 10 minutes. The judge denied bail for all 3 flight risk severity danger to the victim. They were led back out, and I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no anger, just a hollow emptiness. That afternoon, Mr. Warren called. "The company stands behind you completely, Stellan." What she did. "I'm so sorry." I thanked him. A few colleagues reached out. Some sincere, others clearly hungry for details. I stopped replying. By the second week of October, I realized I couldn't stay in the house. Every room was poisoned by memory. The couch where Janet smiled while poison coursed through me. The dining table where we ate while she planned my death. I packed essentials, clothes, documents, my laptop. I left the photographs. Every smiling image felt like a lie. Bill Thompson offered his guest room. As long as you need it, he said. I moved in on October 20th. On October 25th, I listed the house for sale, $850,000. The agent, Brenda Collins, was gentle but honest. With the circumstances, she said, buyers will know. Tell them everything, I replied. I have nothing to hide. The house sold in 3 weeks to an out-of-state couple unfamiliar with the story. I signed the paperwork in Angela's office and walked away from 18 years of my life. Angela suggested therapy. Dr. Helen Morrison, a trauma specialist. I resisted. I'd spent 30 days calculating every move, controlling every emotion. I thought I was fine. But on November 3rd, I sat across from Dr. Morrison. Tell me what happened, she said. I talked for an hour about the overheard phone call, hiring Angela and Howard, the poison, the forgery, the confrontation, the arraignment, the house I couldn't live in, the family I'd lost. When I finished, she leaned forward. You spent a month performing Stellan, calculating, controlling. It's okay to stop now. Something broke. I buried my face in my hands and cried, for the first time since it began. I cried for the marriage that was never real, for the daughter who chose money over her father's life, for 26 years spent believing in something that didn't exist. Dr. Morrison sat quietly, letting me fall apart. You won the war, she said gently. Now you have to learn how to live with the victory. By mid-November, Howard called again. 3 more women had come forward against Brian Caldwell. Same pattern: intimacy, manipulation, financial exploitation. Federal charges were added: wire fraud, extortion, racketeering. Brian's case had grown beyond me. He wasn't just a lover. He was a predator with a system. The district attorney estimated Brian faced 40 years. Janet and Taylor each faced 25. I told Dr. Morrison during our 3rd session. Does it help? She asked. No, I said. It just makes me sad I wasn't the first. But you were the first to fight back, she replied. Because of you, others found the courage to speak. Maybe that mattered. I spent the rest of November in Bill's guest room. Therapy twice a week. No news, no interviews. Just trying to understand who I was now. I had protected my money. I had sent my enemies to prison. I had walked out of that police station alive. But freedom, I was learning, wasn't the same as peace. After 30 days of composure, I finally collapsed in a therapist's office. And as I sat there grieving for the family I lost and the 26 years I wasted, I understood the truth. I had won the war. Now I had to learn how to live with the victory. The trial lasted 9 months. 9 months of reliving the worst period of my life in exacting, relentless detail. November and December of 2020 were consumed by pretrial motions and plea negotiations. Defense attorneys Paul Garrison for Janet Michelle Torres for Taylor and Marcus Webb for Brian reviewed the mountain of evidence assembled by the prosecution. Audio recordings, surveillance footage, financial records, forensic reports, and witness statements. They pushed for plea deals. Assistant District Attorney Nathan Pierce rejected every offer. Your clients conspired to end a man's life, he said in a hearing I attended. We're going to trial. In March 2021, the defense challenged the admissibility of evidence. They claimed the home surveillance violated privacy laws. They argued Chad's recordings were coerced. They questioned the chain of custody for the lab samples. Judge Edward Lawson reviewed each motion carefully. Then, he ruled all evidence was admissible. The cameras were installed legally on my own property. Chad's recordings were made in cooperation with law enforcement under a formal immunity agreement. The lab samples followed proper forensic protocols from collection to analysis. The defense had nowhere to stand. The trial began on June 7, 2021. I sat behind the prosecution table every day as Nathan Pierce dismantled the lies my family had constructed. The courtroom was full. Media packed the back rows. Sketch artists documented every moment. I became a fixture, the man who had uncovered his own family's plot. The first week focused on financial crimes. Pice walked the jury through forged documents, fraudulent transfer attempts, and the coordinated schemes Janet and Brian designed. Sandra Lewis testified about the attempted life insurance beneficiary change. Stephen Clark described the $100,000 withdrawal Janet attempted using a forged power of attorney. Forensic document examiner Peter Donovan displayed side-by-side comparisons of my authentic signature and Janet's forgeries. The second week addressed the poisoning. Dr. Mark Stevens, the lab technician, explained how warfare prevents clotting, accumulates in the body, and causes fatal internal bleeding over time. He detailed how the dosage found in my food would have killed me within weeks. Pierce presented the evidence. Coffee samples, soup samples, and the August 3rd casserole, all tested positive for warfare and at dangerous concentrations. These were not accidents. Dr. Stevens said someone deliberately and repeatedly poisoned Mr. Coleman. During cross-examination, Paul Garrison suggested contamination. Dr. Stevens responded calmly. The chain of custody was flawless. The results are conclusive. The third week revealed the conspiracy. Pierce played surveillance footage from my home, Janet, on the phone with Brian, discussing when the money comes through. Taylor visiting and complaining about my stinginess. Then came Chad's recordings from September 28th. The courtroom fell silent. Janet, we needed to look accidental. Brian, the break line is the cleanest option, Taylor, and then we inherit everything. I watched the jury's faces shift from disbelief to horror. The fourth week brought supporting witnesses. Howard Russell testified about surveillance photos of Janet and Brian at hotels' financial records, showing Brian's payments to Taylor and the 18-month pattern. Angela Foster explained the legal strategy used to protect my assets. Mike Johnson from HR described Donna Phillips's privacy breach. Donna testified next, shaking as she described Brian's blackmail threats against her daughter. In July, I took the stand. For 2 days, Pice guided me through the entire timeline, overhearing the call on September 1st, hiring Angela and Howard, uncovering the affair, discovering Taylor's debt-finding poisoned food, recording the conspiracy meeting, and coordinating the sting. Why didn't you confront them? Pice asked. Because confrontation would have destroyed evidence, I said. I needed the truth documented before they knew I was watching. During cross-examination, Garrison tried to portray me as calculating and cruel. You let your wife believe everything was normal, he said. She was poisoning my food, I replied, looking at the jury. I was trying to stay alive. Garrison had nothing left. Chad Brooks testified next. He described my offer of immunity and his decision to wear a wire. Mr. Coleman gave me a choice. Chad said, stop it or go down with them. The recordings played again. The jury heard everything. The defense called character witnesses, friends who described Janet and Taylor as kind and loving. Taylor's former roommate insisted she would never hurt anyone. Pice dismantled each witness. Did Taylor mention owing Brian $105,000 silence? Did Janet mention poisoning her husband's silence again? The defense argued Brian manipulated both women. The recordings proved otherwise. Janet testified briefly. I felt invisible, she said. Pierce responded, so you poisoned him. She had no answer. Taylor and Brian did not testify. On September 3rd, 2021, the jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty, count after count. All 3 defendants, every charge. Judge Lawson set sentencing for October 15th. As the courtroom emptied, Angela rested a hand on my shoulder. It's over, she said. I nodded. When the verdict was read, I felt no joy, no revenge, only closure. They tried to end my life. The justice system answered, it wasn't revenge, it was consequence. Conviction was one thing, sentencing was another. This was the day they would learn how many years of their lives they'd lost. October 15th, 2021. 10 months after the arrests, 4 months after the trial began, I walked into Judge Edward Lawson's courtroom for the final time. The room was full again. Reporters, curious observers, a few colleagues who'd followed the case. Angela sat beside me. Howard Russell was in the back row. Bill Thompson had taken the day off work to be there. Janet, Taylor, and Brian were brought in separately, each flanked by their attorneys. Janet looked thinner than she had at trial, her hair showing more gray. Taylor's eyes were red and hollow. Brian sat with the same blank expression he'd worn since the verdict. Judge Lawson entered and we all stood. This court is now in session, he said. We're here for sentencing in the matter of the people versus Janet Coleman, Taylor Coleman, and Brian Caldwell. Before I proceed, I'm offering Mr. Stellan Coleman the opportunity to deliver a victim impact statement. I stood. My hands were steady. I'd written this statement weeks ago, revised it a dozen times, practiced it in front of Dr. Morrison. But now, standing in that courtroom with everyone watching, the words felt heavier than I'd expected. Your Honor, I began. For 32 years, I worked to build a life, a home, a family. I thought I was building something real, but it was built on lies. My wife didn't just betray me. She tried to end my life. My daughter, the child I raised, loved, sacrificed for, agreed to help. Not because she was scared, not because she was protecting anyone, because of money. I paused, looking at Janet and Taylor. Neither of them met my eyes. I'm not asking for maximum sentences because of hatred. I continued. I'm asking because they need to understand that you can't attempt to harm someone and then expect mercy when you're caught. Actions have consequences, and when your actions involve poison, forgery, and conspiracy, the consequences should be severe. I sat down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Lawson nodded. Thank you, Mr. Coleman. He turned to the defense attorneys. Does the defense wish to make any statements before sentencing? Paul Garrison stood first, representing Janet. Your Honor, Mrs. Coleman is 52 years old. She made terrible choices, but she has no prior criminal record. She, Judge Lawson, interrupted. She poisoned her husband deliberately and repeatedly. That is the definition of dangerous, Mr. Garrison. Garrison sat down, defeated. Michelle Torres rose next for Taylor. Your Honor, my client is only 24. She was manipulated by an older, more experienced financial predator. She was an adult who made adult choices, Judge Lawson said flatly. She sat in a meeting and agreed to a plan that would have ended her father's life. That's not manipulation, that's conspiracy. Torres sat. Marcus Webb, Brian's attorney, made a brief attempt to argue for leniency based on Brian's cooperation during the investigation. Judge Lawson wasn't interested. Mr. Caldwell has a pattern, the judge said. Multiple victims, a system. This wasn't a crime of passion or desperation. This was calculated predation. Judge Lawson opened the sentencing documents in front of him. The room held its breath. He looked at Janet first. Janet Coleman, you have been convicted of conspiracy to commit fraud, financial exploitation, forgery, and conspiracy to cause intentional harm. The severity of your crimes, particularly the poisoning of your husband over an extended period, demands significant consequences. I hereby sentence you to 25 years in state prison. You will be eligible for parole consideration after serving 20 years. This sentence reflects the gravity of your actions and the danger you pose to another human being. Janet's face crumpled. She made no sound, but her shoulders shook. Judge Lawson turned to Taylor. Taylor Coleman, you participated in a conspiracy against your own father. You agreed to a plan that, if successful, would have resulted in his death. You did this knowingly and willingly. I sentence you to 15 years in state prison. You will be eligible for parole consideration after serving 12 years. I hope you spend that time reflecting on the choices that brought you here. Taylor sobbed openly. Her attorney put an arm around her, but there was no comfort to be found. Finally, Judge Lawson addressed Brian. Brian Caldwell, you are a predator. The evidence presented at trial showed a pattern of manipulation, blackmail, and financial exploitation spanning multiple victims over several years. You targeted vulnerable people, built relationships designed to destroy them, and profited from their suffering. This court finds your conduct reprehensible. I sentenced you to 30 years in federal prison. No parole. You will serve the full term. Brian's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. There was one more matter to address. Donna Phillips had been granted a separate sentencing hearing due to the unique circumstances of her case. Judge Lawson reviewed her file. Ms. Phillips, he said gently, you were coerced into participating through blackmail and threats against your child. While you did violate federal privacy laws, the court recognizes that you were a victim of Mr. Caldwell's manipulation. I sentence you to 5 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and mandatory counseling. The recordings Mr. Caldwell used to blackmail you will be permanently sealed by court order. You are free to go. Donna, sitting beside Angela, broke down in tears this time from relief. Judge Lawson closed the files. This court is adjourned. The bailiffs moved to escort the defendants out. Janet turned to look at me one last time. I didn't look away. After a moment, she turned and walked through the door that led to the holding cells. Taylor tried to speak. "Dad, please." But her attorney pulled her along. Brian walked out without a backward glance. I sat in the courtroom as it emptied. Angela stayed beside me, silent and steady. 25 years, I said quietly. 15 years, 30 years, 70 years combined, Angela said. For 30 days of planning to destroy you. I nodded. The numbers felt disproportionate in a strange way. A lifetime of consequences for a month of conspiracy. But that's what justice looked like. Not revenge, not satisfaction, just the cold mathematics of legal consequence. I walked out of the courthouse into the October afternoon. Reporters called out. Questions. I ignored them, moving through the crowd with Angela and Howard flanking me. Bill met me at my car. He didn't say anything. He just pulled me into a hug. "It's done," he said. "It's done," I echoed. I drove away from the courthouse for the last time, heading toward the lakeside property I'd purchased during the trial. A smaller house, quieter. No memories embedded in the walls. 25 years, 15 years, 30 years. 70 years of prison time for 3 people who'd spent 1 month trying to destroy me. The numbers sounded disproportionate, but that was all the justice system could give. And somehow it would have to be enough. The lakeside house had nothing in common with the home I'd shared with Janet. And that was exactly the point. I moved in during May 2021, 2 months before sentencing. 3 bedrooms, a small workshop, a deck overlooking the water. It was quieter, smaller, and completely mine. The first week was spent unpacking boxes and arranging furniture. But when I went to hang pictures, I stopped. I realized I had no family photos I wanted to display. Wedding pictures, vacations, images of Taylor growing up. Every photo felt contaminated. I couldn't look at them without seeing the lies beneath, so I left the walls bare. By June, I set up the workshop in the garage. I hadn't done woodworking since my 20s, but the muscle memory came back. I started small, a bookshelf, a coffee table, a bench for the deck. The work was slow and deliberate, grounding in a way I hadn't expected. Bill Thompson stopped by one Saturday and found me sanding a tabletop. "You're good at this," he said. "It keeps my hands busy," I replied. "Keeps my head quiet. That's exactly what you need." He was right. Building something tangible, something honest helped. Every joint I fitted reminded me I could still create things that lasted. Therapy with Dr. Helen Morrison continued through the summer. Weekly at first, then every 2 weeks. "You're not performing anymore," she said in August. "You're letting yourself feel. Feeling hurts." I said that's how healing starts. I wasn't convinced, but I kept going. In September, I began volunteering at the local Veterans Center. They needed help with job training, resumes, interviews, career planning. I wasn't a veteran, but I had decades of professional experience and time to give. The veterans gave me perspective. I met men who'd lost limbs, friends, families. Betrayal and loss weren't unique to me. They were human experiences. Knowing that helped. One counselor, Robert, pulled me aside. "They trust you," he said. "You should keep coming." So I did. In October, I joined a local hiking group. Weekend trails, casual conversations with people who didn't know my story. Being anonymous again felt like breathing. One regular Maria Santos invited me for coffee after a hike. She was 57, a nurse divorced for years. We talked easily about trails, weather work. "We should do this again," she said. Maybe, I replied. I wasn't ready, but the possibility felt like progress. In June, I did something I'd been considering for months. I established an education trust for Lily Phillips, $50,000 for her future. I asked Donna to meet me at Angela's office. She arrived nervous. Angela explained the trust. Donna stared at the documents, then at me. "Why would you do this?" she asked. "Because Lily is innocent," I said. "And you deserve a future without Brian's shadow," Donna cried. I stayed quiet. In September, Donna and Lily visited the lake house. Lily hid behind her mother at first, then ran to the dock when she saw the water. "Can I draw it?" she asked. I found paper and pencils. She sketched the lake, the trees, the ducks. When she finished, she handed it to me. "For your house," she said, "so it's not empty." I taped it to the refrigerator. The first picture that mattered. In November, Mr. Warren stopped by with whiskey. We sat on the deck at sunset. "How are you really doing?" he asked. "I'm surviving," I said. "Some days that's enough." He nodded. "It gets easier slowly, but it does." "Did you ever trust again?" "Yes," he said differently. By December, 1 year after the arrests, I had a rhythm. Therapy every 2 weeks, volunteering twice a month, hiking on weekends, woodworking at night, quiet dinners with Bill, occasional coffee with Maria. It wasn't the retirement I'd imagined. No wife, no daughter visiting, no grandchildren someday. But there was peace. Fragile, earned peace. One evening in late December, I sat on the deck watching the sunset stain the lake gold. A fishing rod rested unused beside me. Steam rose from my coffee. I thought about the man I'd been a year earlier, standing in a garage at midnight, watching my life collapse. I wasn't that man anymore. 1 year ago, I had a family, I said to the empty deck. Now I have this, the quiet water, the simple house. This isn't what I wanted, but maybe it's what I needed. At 60, I was starting over. No legacy, no partner. But as the sun disappeared, I understood something. I was free. Truly free. Free from lies, free from performance, free from fear. And that freedom, hard, lonely earned, was worth more than any amount of money. 2 years after the arrests, a letter arrived with a postmark from inside a prison. I was 61 years old, sitting at my kitchen table with morning coffee when I saw the return address, Women's Correctional Facility. Sender Taylor Coleman, inmate number 847392. I stared at the envelope for a long time. The handwriting was hers, careful, slightly slanted to the right, the way she'd been taught in elementary school. I remembered helping her practice cursive at this same kitchen table back when we lived in a different house in a different life. I sat down my coffee and opened the envelope slowly. The letter was 3 pages handwritten on lined paper. I unfolded it and began to read. "Dad, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve that. I helped plan to harm you. I sat in that meeting and said yes when they talked about staging an accident. I did it for money. I didn't earn money that wasn't mine money. I wanted badly enough to destroy you for it. I was 24. That's not an excuse. It's just a fact. I was old enough to know better. Brian manipulated me. He loaned me money I couldn't pay back, made me dependent, told me you were selfish for not giving me more. But I let him. Mom poisoned my mind about you for years, said you cared more about work than about us. But I listened. I have 13 more years to think about what I did, 13 years to sit in this cell and remember the father who taught me to ride a bike, who paid for my college, who would have done anything for me, and how I repaid him. I don't know who I'll be when I get out at 39. I don't know if I'll even recognize myself. But I really hope I'll become someone you wouldn't be ashamed of. I'm not asking for a reply. I'm not begging for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I love you, Dad. I always have, even when I was too stupid and selfish to show it, Taylor." I set the letter down. My hands were shaking slightly. I stood up, poured another cup of coffee, and sat back down. I read the letter again. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Was she truly remorseful? Or was this prison remorse the kind that comes from consequences, not from genuine understanding of harm done? I couldn't know. There was no way to know. I thought about the Tor I'd raised, the little girl who used to climb into my lap and ask me to read her bedtime stories, the teenager who'd called me from college homesick and scared during her first week away, the young woman who'd sat across from me at breakfast and asked about retirement plans while already plotting with Brian and Janet, which Taylor was real. Maybe they all were. Maybe people contain multitudes capable of love and betrayal in the same breath. Part of me wanted to write back immediately. I forgive you. Come home when you're released. Let's rebuild. Part of me wanted to burn the letter. You tried to end my life. There's no coming back from that. Neither felt right. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the kitchen drawer where I kept things I wasn't ready to deal with, old photographs. I couldn't bring myself to look at the finalized divorce decree. Christmas card Taylor had sent me when she was 19 that said, "Best dad ever." I closed the drawer. Maybe someday I'd open it again and be ready to respond. Maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10, maybe never, but not today. Today I was still healing. I called Angela that afternoon and asked about the prison situation. She'd been keeping tabs on all three of them as part of the case follow-up. Janet and Taylor are in the same facility. She told me different blocks, but they see each other in common areas sometimes. From what I hear, they're both model inmates attending programs, staying out of trouble. "Sean, are they remorseful?" I asked, "or just behaving?" Angela paused. "I can't answer that, Stellan. Only they know." Anne, Brian, their federal prison in Pennsylvania, solitary housing unit. Most of the time he was marked as a predator by other inmates within the first month. No visitors, no contact with Janet or Taylor. He's essentially been forgotten. I nodded. That felt appropriate. A week later, another letter arrived. This one was from Chad Brooks. Chad had relocated to another state as part of his immunity agreement. New city, new job, fresh start. The letter was short and straightforward. "Mr. Coleman, I wanted you to know I got engaged last month. Her name is Emily. She's a teacher. We're expecting our first child in December. I think about that night a lot. The meeting, the recording, the choice you gave me. You could have let me go down with them. Instead, you gave me a chance to do the right thing. I learned what matters. I hope you found peace. Thank you, Chad Brooks." I read the letter twice, then sat down and wrote a reply. Just one sentence. "Live well, Chad. You earned it." I mailed it that afternoon. Chad had made a choice when it mattered. He'd been 26, stupid, desperate for money, and willing to do terrible things. But when confronted, he'd chosen accountability over loyalty to criminals. That had to count for something. Taylor had made a different choice. She'd sat in that meeting and agreed to a plan that would have ended my life. And now, 2 years later, she was asking for something I wasn't sure I could give. I sat on the deck that evening watching the sun set over the lake, the same view I'd watched 100 times over the past 2 years. The water was calm, the air was warm, everything was peaceful. I thought about Taylor's letter sitting in the kitchen drawer. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Maybe she was. Maybe she'd spend the next 13 years becoming someone different, someone better, someone who understood the weight of what she'd done. Or maybe she'd get out at 39 and still be the same person who'd chosen money over her father's life. I couldn't control that. I could only control my own healing. I thought about Dr. Morrison's words from a session months ago. Forgiveness isn't something you owe anyone. It's something you give when and if you're ready. Don't let anyone rush you. I wasn't ready. Maybe I would be someday. Maybe in 5 years when Taylor had served more time and proven her remorse wasn't just words on paper. Maybe in 10 when enough distance had passed that I could see her as a flawed human being instead of the daughter who'd betrayed me. Or maybe never. I didn't know yet, and that was okay. I went back inside, poured a glass of water, and glanced at the kitchen drawer. The letter was in there along with all the other pieces of my past I wasn't ready to confront. Someday, I might open that drawer and be ready to forgive, but I'd learned that forgiveness wasn't something you could force. It came, if it came at all, on its own schedule. And my schedule wasn't there yet. 5 years after the day, I came home early and overheard my wife planning to destroy me. I sat on my deck, watching the sunset over the lake, and for the first time in 5 years, I felt something very close to peace. I was 64 years old, a cup of coffee steamed in my hands. A fishing rod leaned against the railing, unused, but ready. The water was calm, reflecting the orange and pink sky like polished glass. 5 years, I said to the empty deck. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Both were true. I thought about where everyone was now, the people who had defined the worst chapter of my life, and the people who helped me build something better afterward. Janet was 57, serving year 5 of her 25-year sentence. She would be eligible for parole at 72 if she maintained good behavior. According to Angela's occasional updates, she worked in the prison library and participated in rehabilitation programs. Whether her remorse was real or performative, I couldn't say. I didn't think about her much anymore. When I did, it was with distant curiosity, like reading about a stranger in the newspaper. Taylor was 29, serving year 5 of her 15-year sentence. She would be eligible for parole at 36. She had sent another letter during year 4. More apologies, more reflection. I read it, then folded it, and placed it in the same drawer as the first letter, the divorce papers and the old photographs. She was my daughter. I couldn't erase 24 years of loving her, but I also couldn't forgive her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I had made peace with not knowing. Brian Caldwell was 47, serving year 5 of his 30-year federal sentence with no parole. If he survived his sentence, he would be 72 when released. According to Angela, he received no visitors and sent no letters. He had become invisible. I never thought about him. He was already gone. Chad Brooks was 31, now married with a daughter born in year 3. He sent a birth announcement. I sent congratulations and a small gift. We exchanged holiday cards. He had made the right choice when it mattered most, and his life reflected that. It felt important to acknowledge. Donna Phillips was 43, thriving in a rebuilt career. Lily was 13, an honor student with dreams of becoming an engineer. The Education Trust was already helping. They visited twice a year. Lily called me Uncle Stellan and brought drawings of the lake just like she had when she was 8. They were the family I chose. That mattered more than the one I lost. My own life had settled into something I never expected but had learned to value. I still worked with wood-selling furniture at craft markets and donating the profits to a scholarship fund for children of incarcerated parents. Turning pain into purpose felt right. I volunteered at the Veterans Center, mentoring men navigating betrayal and loss. I didn't feed their anger. I helped them survive. I still saw Dr. Morrison once a month. I'm not finished healing, I told her. She smiled, knowing that is wisdom. I hiked most weekends. I played poker on Tuesdays with Bill and a few others. Quiet friendships built on presence rather than history. And then there was Maria Santos. Coffee for a year, dinner a few times. Nothing rushed. She knew my story and didn't define me by it. She treated me like a man learning to trust again. I'm getting there. I told her once and I meant it. Bill Thompson became my closest friend. He once called me strong. I corrected him. I survived. That's different. But maybe survival was strength. Sometimes I thought about the drawer with Taylor's letters. She could be released in 7 years. I'd be 71. Would I see her? I didn't know. Forgiveness couldn't be forced. I had learned that was okay. People asked how I survived, how I stayed calm, how I won. The answer was simple. I didn't act on emotion. I acted on strategy. When betrayal is discovered, the instinct is confrontation. I didn't do that. I collected evidence. I protected myself. Patience isn't weakness, it's power. They spent 30 days planning my destruction. I spent 30 days building the prison that would hold them. Justice doesn't need drama, it needs documentation. Let the courts handle justice. Let karma handle the rest. I took another sip of coffee as the sky darkened. The lake turned purple. An owl called from the trees. 5 years ago, I was a man running on adrenaline and rage. I wasn't that man anymore. I had lost 26 years to a lie, but I still had time ahead of me. I had rebuilt. I had healed enough. I had learned that peace wasn't loud. I set the empty cup on the railing and smiled. I'm free. I said to the darkness, and this time I believed it. And to you listening to this family story, remember this. When betrayal comes from the people you love most, your first instinct will be to react with emotion, to confront, to explode. I'm telling you, don't do it. Don't be like me in that sense. Yes, I survived. Yes, I won. But I also lost 26 years of my life believing in something that wasn't real. I lost my daughter to choices she made at 24. I lost the family story I thought I was living. If I could go back, I wouldn't change my tactics. I'd change how long I let the lie go on before I opened my eyes. Trust, but verify. Love, but protect yourself. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. There's a reason God gave us wisdom along with love. He didn't call us to be fools. He called us to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. I learned that lesson the hardest way possible. This dad revenge story isn't about celebrating what I did. It's about showing you that survival requires cold calculation when everything inside you is screaming. Dad revenge isn't dramatic movie scenes. It's protecting your assets, gathering evidence, and letting justice run its course. It's choosing your future over their destruction. This dad revenge taught me that patience is power and strategy beats emotion every single time. That's the real family story here. Not the betrayal, but what you do after you discover it. My advice, if you're in a situation like mine, document everything, hire the right professionals, and don't confront until you're legally bulletproof. Emotion is your enemy. Strategy is your ally. And here's my personal belief. I don't think people like Janet Bryan or even Taylor are born wanting to hurt others. I think greed, insecurity, and bad influences can turn good people into monsters. That doesn't excuse what they did, but it reminds me that I'm responsible for protecting myself because no one else will. At 64, I'm finally free. And that freedom came from choosing tactics over emotion, patience over revenge, and survival over satisfaction. If this story resonated with you, helped you, or made you think differently about trust and betrayal, please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Your support helps me continue bringing these stories to you. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. A quick note, the stories I share may contain fictionalized elements created for educational purposes. If that's not your preference, feel free to explore other content that better suits your interests. I truly appreciate you being